Ireland raised €1 billion at a bond auction last week. Now we saw yields fall to a record low and Ireland's 10-year securities rise for a ninth week. I'm joined by Thibault Mercier, an economist at BNP Paribas in Paris. Now Thibault, this clearly shows Ireland is making a successful emergence from bailout measures. Now do you think we will continue to see good news in the Irish bond market?
Well, probably yes. First you have an environment of excess liquidity because the monetary policies in Europe, in the US, in Japan, well, in major economies, monetary policies are very accommodative. So you have excess liquidity in the world, and this push yields to lower levels. So this supports appetite for bonds, and Ireland is in a good position, is improving. Well, we have seen some volatility in recent GDP figures, but overall we think that the recovery is on track. The sentiment is improving, so the combined effect of a large amount of liquidity and an improving economy. Yes, we should see some news, some good news in the rate bonds.
And how do Irish bonds compare to other periphery Eurozone bonds?
Well, yields are better, they are lower, so they compare well. We have to note that the decline in yields, this is to say the improvement in funding conditions for sovereigns, is a common trend for all European countries, and especially the peripheral countries that used to struggle in the bond market. So there is a common trend of improvements in sovereign funding conditions. But it's true that Ireland compares pretty well with the other European countries.
Thibault, you mentioned volatility in Irish GDP figures. GDP for the final quarter was disappointing as it fell unexpectedly on the back of a sharp fall-off in net exports. This was linked to the pharmaceutical patent lift. Now, can you go into a little bit more detail about the impact and importance of this patent cliff?
The volatility of the GDP figures is a common feature of the Irish economy. It is a very small economy and extremely open economy. This means that there is a lot of companies in Ireland that are export companies, and especially in the pharma sector. And in 13, these companies were affected by the patent cliff, meaning the expiry of a lot of patents, and so the activity in pharma companies has weakened, and this has affected the Irish economy. But I would say that maybe more importantly, that the GDP figure that was very disappointing, the GNP figures, which is more precisely the activity in Ireland, independently of the multinational here on Ireland, the GNP rose by something like 3% last year, and this was actually the main information to look at.
We also have the Irish trade balance out on Wednesday. Now, what are you expecting to see?
Well, we should see some weakening, which is linked to the poor year in 13 for net export. But as I just said, this is something quite cyclical. It's linked to this pharma cliff. So we could see some temporary weakening, but overall the trade balance in Ireland is structurally strong because as a very open economy, it attracts a lot of multinational companies, and they traditionally help to show good figures for trade balance.
Thibault, what will you be watching out for over the coming months, and what do you think will be the main challenges facing the government?
Well, I think it's a common feature for a lot of European economies. We will closely watch the European election, which will be a test for the government in Ireland and also for governments in other countries. This is very particular moments in Europe and in Ireland in particular, because you begin to see sign of life in the economy. The recovery seems on track, but the unemployment is still very high, and it fuels social discontent. So European election will be clearly a test, and it's in May. And more generally, you had a very successful macroeconomic adjustment in Ireland following the housing bubble burst, but you still have a very high budget deficit, which is close to 7% of GDP, and this clearly will call for further austerity measures and further belt tightening in Ireland, and this also should be quite difficult to make it accepted, especially in a country where you still have around 12% of unemployed people. So I think the main events to watch will be political.
Thibault, thank you very much. It was a pleasure speaking to you today. Well, viewers, do stay tuned and have a great St. Patrick's Day. Goodbye for now.